Hi, Boise, and welcome back to Front Porch Friday. Once again, I think these campaigns, the weeks are so crazy. Here I am doing this at nighttime before I go home rather than this morning from my own front porch. Today, I wanted to talk about a sensitive and pressing issue regarding ticketing people who are experiencing homelessness here in Boise. Many people have asked me over the course of the summer how I felt about the city's decision to take this to the Supreme Court, and I've answered honestly every time. There was no vote taken to do this, and the mayor's administration and the mayor himself is very intent on using the tool of ticketing, believing that ticketing and criminalizing homelessness is the right way to go to prevent it. I've always disagreed on that topic in particular. In fact, back in 2014, when the city was amending its ticketing ordinance to reflect what the police were doing, which was ticketing only when there weren't beds, I voted against it because I was surprised that we were ticketing homeless people at all. It didn't feel right then. It's never felt right. That case, the Martin v. Boise case that we talk often about, has been winding its way through the courts since before I was on city council. This spring, when it was presented that we should take this to the Supreme Court, I initially argued vehemently against it. I was passionate, I believe, in my argument, maybe a little too passionate in my arguments and concerns about why we were talking about taking it to the Supreme Court. Anyone in those executive sessions knows that I asked lots of questions. I had grave personal concerns about it and the implications that our actions would have on people that live throughout the Western US and the Ninth Circuit. Over the course of those conversations, there were a couple days, I was led to believe and came to believe that every provider of homeless services in this community agreed that this was the right step. And I started doubting my own belief that this wasn't, and thought that I was litigating myself, not in the courts, old ideas about criminalization of homeless if all the providers here in Boise wanted us to do this. So I laid down my sword and I stopped arguing. I had, and then, excuse me, my alarm's going. And then when the news came out that we were taking this forward, that the city was taking this forward to the Supreme Court, I learned that that wasn't the case, that there indeed wasn't consensus. And I have shared this with the public when asked. I shared this with reporters yesterday. And I was surprised, really surprised, that there wasn't consensus. And I felt incredibly guilty for laying down my sword. Not that it would have made a difference because we weren't voting and the administration was moving forward. That doesn't matter. I felt guilty because I hadn't just stuck to my guns and instead started doubting what I believed to be true. That often happens when people aren't given full information and there isn't any other dissent. That's no excuse, however. So I shared with people from that moment on my wish, one, the process I went through in arguing and then stopping, and my regret that we were moving in this direction, and that had I known everything that the administration knew to be true, I would not have proposed or supported as a mayor that we take this at this fork in the road to the Supreme Court. I knew in saying, what I want to say is on Wednesday, at the Statesman interview, I think it was Wednesday, we were all, the panel of candidates was asked this question. I answered in the same way in front of the mayor. And I knew that personal attacks would likely come when I spoke up more than one-on-one conversations. But I answered right there with everyone in the room and then talked with Margaret yesterday in the same way that I've talked with the public about my regrets and my beliefs and values regarding the importance of connecting people with the services they need and doing everything we can to prevent people from having to live in the streets. And that taking a process like writing a ticket to a person who is in incredibly dire life situations doesn't help that person get a leg up, makes it harder because they're now in the criminal justice system. They are now having to pay fees and fines and show up for appearances in court, and then getting in trouble again if they don't. That makes it harder to find housing in the long term, harder to find a job in the long term. And I really, really, really wish that Boise were not carrying this case all the way forward, knowing that all the locals didn't want it, because it has implications on people in communities where they don't have programs like our Housing First programs, which are incredible and we need more of, without having taken, and we can do more without having to take the step of writing a ticket to get people into beds. So that's what I wanted to answer today and explain. I'm really disheartened by the attack that came this afternoon, especially when I was clear in the process that I went through, and how I came to stop arguing and how I came to realize that everything that I was told wasn't the information, wasn't the complete story. And it's really unfortunate that instead of recognizing that I went through my process to talk about this and how important this is to me, that instead I was attacked personally this evening, and a reporter was attacked as well. I feel very badly for her, because reporters report news should never be the subject of press releases and attacks. So thanks so much for listening tonight. I will see you guys next Friday for Front Porch Friday, if not before. Hope you have a good weekend.